such as hydrogen in the off-highway equipment industry. To shed more light on this, I would like to invite on stage the experts, Mr. Hemnath Kumar, co-founder, Bulwark Mobility. Thank you, Mr. Kumar. I'll request you to take a seat. Mr. Saurabh Mohan Saxena, Director, AHODS Technologies, is the next panelist on this discussion. So he heard you all clap so loud, he said, I'm not coming up on the stage. No, he's making his way on the stage in a couple of seconds from now. But you know what I'm saying, right? So make sure that you put your hands together for everyone coming up on the dais whenever they do. Let's invite Dr. Sushil S. Ramdasi, Deputy Director, Powertrain Engineering, ARAI. The next panelist is Dr. Bhalachandra Deshmukh, Senior General Manager, Head of Highway Industrial Application Engineering at Kirloskar Oil Engines Limited. Welcome, sir. The moderator for this session is Mr. Kaushik Madhavan, Vice President, Mobility, Frost & Sullivan. And of course, we have Mr. Hemnath Kumar, co-founder, Bulwark Mobility, making his way towards the stage as well.
He's already here.
Oh, fantastic.
Except Saurabh, everybody else is there.
Saurabh, sir? Yes, that's Saurabh on the left-hand side of the stage. Saurabh Mohan Saxena, Director, AHODS Technologies, making his way here.
I'll stand here.
Oh, please.
Thank you very much. It's good to be back in person. I think we've seen enough of 13-inch and 14-inch screens over the past 24 months. So I hope you all had a good lunch. It's always challenging to keep you awake, soon after lunch. This panel discussion is going to be hopefully interesting for you. First of all, I must thank Rohit and his wonderful team for bringing us back to in-person conferences. I think threefold will start the trend again. Round of applause. And hopefully we'll see more and more in-person conferences. I prefer standing myself, my dear panelists, so that I don't fall asleep. And I'll try to keep you awake as well. Today's topic is very interesting. Hydrogen and electrification, right? Very, very interesting topics, very diverse, I must say. Electrification and hydrogen are really, really two different topics by themselves. But it's interesting that we are talking about them together in this panel. So my experience, with hydrogen goes back, let's say, about 20 years, right? My university days. So I think I first read about BMW, introducing their hydrogen-powered IC engine. I mean, everybody talks about hydrogen-powered fuel cells, right? BMW was the first OEM to introduce a hydrogen-powered IC engine, right? Instead of petrol, you pump in hydrogen into the engine. They experimented with it for a couple of years, I guess, and they dropped the ball, right? They had a lot of challenges. Hydrogen storage, transportation is very, very challenging even today, if you want to use it as a fuel for an IC engine. They had a lot of challenges and they said, okay, we are done with it. Let's focus on hybrids, electrics, diesel and petrol and so on. So that was on the hydrogen, that was hydrogen IC engine. Now recently I was watching a video on YouTube on Kubota X. I know we had Mr. Grewal, I don't know if he's still here or he's maybe having lunch from Kubota earlier. Kubota X is one of the earliest fully autonomous robotic tractor, right? So we've heard a lot of panelists earlier talk about how tractors, agricultural machinery are evolving, right? And today we are already talking about robotic and autonomous tractors, all under the CASE ecosystem, right? What does CASE stands for? Connected, autonomous, shared, and electric, right? Maybe shared, not yet, at least in the agricultural ecosystem. We're already seeing some examples, Stringo, for example. But in the construction equipment too, we are seeing more and more new business models that are coming into the market, which talk about better asset utilization. I think we heard that from one of the panelists earlier as well. And one of the key things that is driving the agricultural space is new business models, like I said, and FaaS, or farming as a service, right? What role will agricultural equipment, tractors, play in farming as a service, right? So the combination of new business models, the way customer expectations are changing, the way OEMs are developing technologies, that itself is changing the way we see agricultural equipment, construction equipment, and so on. So I want to start with your opening comments, gentlemen. You are all very, very experienced from very diverse fields. I want to start with your opening comments in terms of how you see a combination of changing customer expectations, which we heard from before, right? Evolution of technologies, of course, and new business models, right? Hemant, if I can start from you, your opening comments on how you see this market evolving.
Yeah, thanks, Kaushik. Hi, everyone. I'm Hemant from Bulwark Mobility. So this is a very near and dear subject to our hearts because we are a EV-based startup, primarily focusing on an electric tractor. So, see, in terms of where it is headed and how it is, right? So, including the customer demands, the thing is, be it an aggregator or be it a farmer, when a person is using the tractor, right, about half of the, about 3 to 4 liters of diesel is being consumed every hour, right? So, in that perspective, which means that a person is burning that diesel and essentially burning that money. So, if we can reduce that operational cost, that's where we can add a lot of value to the customer as well. So, in that sense, see, there are only few ways you can reduce that cost. Mm-hmm. And to make the IC engine more efficient than what it is today, you have to pump in a lot more money in terms of the R&D and everything, and it will only be an incremental change. Right. It is not a step change. So the only way to move forward is to progress in a step forward and go into electric, and be it hydrogen or electric, and even the customer, from the customer perspective as well, right? What are the change that customers needs is that he wants data now because he knows that he has a mobile and they can know that how much the vehicle has been used, how quickly he can get it serviced, or how, talking about predictive maintenance and all of that stuff. So, and there is an issue of labor as well. Like in India today, there is a lack of skilled labor, even though it seems counterintuitive, but based on our field search, like when we have actually went and talked to a lot of farmers, it is very evident that you get people to do labor, but to do skilled labor, there is definitely shortage. So making things autonomous is the way forward. Mm-hmm. And agriculture, especially in farm equipments, it is a low-hanging fruit because the speeds are low and you're in a very controlled environment. So in that sense, electrification also helps in autonomous because now we have a lot more control and making that is far more easier. So these are the things that needs to be adopted for the customer needs and to move forward.
Understood. Thanks a lot for those points, Hemant. Some very interesting points there. Building on that, Dr. Deshmukh, I'll come to you now. You're from Kirloskar Oil Engines. You're an engine supplier. So we were talking about this earlier as well. So you sit somewhere between, let's say, the regulatory constraints. You are, driven to comply with certain regulations on the one hand. But on the other hand, like he said, the way forward is electric and autonomous, right? So you've got, on the other hand, the customer demands as well. So as an engine supplier, how do you strike the balance between what the industry demands and what regulations you must comply with? How do you strike that balance?
Okay, good afternoon. I think that first let me tell one thing. This session is positioned very well. I think most of the audience now, they completely gone from market economy to understand the agriculture products, the off-highway products, then the IoT, everything. And now we are talking on the electrification and the hydrogen as a fuel. Okay, when you are saying that it's not only the regulatory, I want to say, but the regulatory also plays a very, very important role. It gives me think on two aspects. First of all, is the electrification is the immediate requirement for the off-highway? Let me tell you that we are in the off-highway session, so I will discuss only related to the off-highway. Is it an immediate requirement for the off-highway segment, and is it a tomorrow's need, immediate need? I would like to clearly tell you that answer is no. Second thing is that, is it a legislation requirement and we need to do from the tomorrow? Still the answer is no, because just now we enter into the BS4, now there is upcoming BS5. So more or less we have the 8 to 9 years of time span when if you want to go to the next level of technology or next level of option. Nowadays, I don't call myself as an IC engine person. I say that I'm a power plant person. Either it is an IC engine, either it is a XYZ fuel, or it is any technology which is going to be a prime mover and which is going to supply the power to the particular equipment. So now if you see this point of view, but does it mean that we need to hold the hands on hands and not to do anything? That is also not true. We already started the work, either it is an electrification point of view or it is a hydrogen as a fuel point of view. And what is the necessity of this market? We have seen still morning, this market is very, very different. Here the user is very, very different. Even the fourth class, that may be the highest education of the user, and then the handling over the highest level of technology in his hand and making it more practical in the field, that is another challenge. So going through all this challenge, I think that we have a sufficient time to think on this point, but today is the right day, today is the right time to start as a power plant manufacturer to address all this point, to come out with the right solution, so it will be the fit for market type of solution rather than I've done something and I'm experimenting on behalf of someone. But yes, it is a right time to start, but it's not nothing like that immediately tomorrow we want. In that also, just I want to put a few focus point on this. There are n number of things. If you start from the P0, P1 to the P4 level, at what level of technology immediately you want to be in the hybridization or electrification, and it will be the user friendly also, it will be user acceptance point of also, less costly also, and but started giving the immediate benefit in terms of its productivity, in terms of fuel consumption. I think that is the right.
Excellent. Dr. Deshmukh, I completely agree with you. Just to summarize what you said, you're talking about energy management, right? Essentially, the fuel doesn't matter. Could be petrol, diesel, hybrid, electric, whatever it is. At the end of the day, it is all about energy management. So I'll put that across to Saurabh. Dr. Deshmukh said, is hydrogen or electric the need of today or tomorrow? Maybe not yet, but does that scare you? You've invested in hydrogen, right? So, but nevertheless, how do you see energy management or you playing a role in energy management as we go forward? Because from the OEM's perspective, it's all about, thermal management on the one hand and energy management on the other hand. So what are your opening comments on that?
Thanks, that's a good question. Good afternoon, everybody. So typically, as taking on your previous question and connecting it with few of the comments from co-speakers, it is a transition which we are into, and it's an ecosystem change which is happening. And of course, as you rightly said, there is a time needed to change that ecosystem and adapt to a new one. So is it needed? Of course, the old 100 years of working with the IC engines typically is the way, and the whole ecosystem globally and nationally is adapted and tuned to that. Now, is it needed now? Of course, we need to work for it today, and we have to get ready for it. So that's what is happening, and we have to do. Of course, does it scare me? Of course not, because the transition has to happen. Climate is a problem, and of course, if I see from our forum, which is more on the off-highway, typically the new technologies, of course, can be, and at a small POC level, can be the kind of flag bearers to be adopted into a mass scale, into a pass car or a commercial segment. So typically, from a new technology perspective, and as we discussed now, it is not about the product, technology, it is about the solution what we are trying to give, which is a combination of, energy management, the data and the deep tech and different forums what we are talking together. Right now, we are at the forum of fuel itself, the hardcore. Is it electric as an energy, or is it typically hydrogen? So, of course, we all know hydrogen is the holy grail, and that's the fuel of the future, the most clean. But, of course, as you asked, Deshmukhji, this is an IC engine, and now you look at yourself as a power plant, so as an energy user. So since I have been working on hydrogen on this for quite some time, and my connect globally as well as in India, of course, this was more connected to the negative side of the world, and now the awareness, at least in India, with policy coming in, is coming in place. So one is the traditional way, and the things like the green hydrogen or the blue hydrogen, which is being told as the way to use, which is like, say, 20 years from now or 10 years from now. Can we think it differently? And that's how I say, coming back from the solution to the technology, wherein, of course, this is a transition, how the ecosystem, the cost, the employment, the ecosystem of, service, aftermarket, everything can be used with all the goods available in terms of using a fuel and alternate fuel. And I think most of the people are talking that electric, there is a transition 100%. But at least, in my opinion, I can guarantee everything is going to coexist.
Yeah, absolutely.
There are other fuels, of course. Hydrogen is the holy grail, and that's how we are trying to do, is right now to augment hydrogen into the IC engines. And of course, as you said, BMW did it, and so was electrification done hundreds of years before by Ford already. So, it was not coming to the road. We are doing it after 100 years. Of course, we should not repeat that kind of mistake that we do it. Now it's the need of the hour. Why don't we just wait for next 30 years, 2 years, or 20 years to adopt a fuel which is available, known, good, technology proven? Why don't we use it in a different form as a solution than, the way it is to be planned in a huge commercial way? So, of course, I feel hydrogen is a fuel which can be produced in small quantities in decentralized way, because transportation is the biggest cost which happens with hydrogen.
Yeah.
And if we can remove that critical hurdle, if we produce and immediately use it, it cuts down a lot of cost, and of course you can adapt it for the powerhouse which is available, the IC engines. And we have 8 billion of them running across right now, consuming this dirty fuel. So, of course, if we can make it a bit better, I have got my emissions better, and I don't use a technology for post-combustion treatment.
Correct.
One is, we have all the, this is a lot of, fundamental thinking. I have all my Euro norms of Bharat stage norms of emission, which is when the fuel is burned, you try to just control it with the best of the technology. And of course, you do it in 1-2%. Why don't you have of course, as dual fuels are coming in, as an augmentation of a clean fuel mixed with the fossil fuel, wherein you can have say the percentage of 10 to 20%, wherein of course the output is cleaner. We have these gases, these issues of air and health issues, and we are using a much cleaner fuel along with this fuel. So
Exactly.
both coexist.
I completely, again, agree with you when you say it's never going to be a situation, where one fuel source or one energy source fits all, right? It's always going to be a basket of solutions. Depending on the use case, you pick and choose the fuel that's relevant, right? That's something I completely agree with you on. So I'll come to you, Dr. Ramdasi, you're from Arai, and A lot of people always think, ARAI is just for certification and homologation and regulation, right? Very few people know that, ARAI also provides full-fledged technology and R&D solutions, right? End-to-end, simulation, development, right? So from your perspective, what role do you think an association or an organization like ARAI is going to play, especially when we talk about new business models? And technology is on the one hand, but when you talk about new business models, depending on what the customer wants, how do you see, ARAI playing a role there?
I think this is a very relevant question and a very important question to answer. Yeah. So basically, Automotive Research Association of India, as you correctly mentioned, that it's not only a testing and certification organization, but it's basically the main establishment of this organization is based on the industry thought process that to have a common R&D infrastructure under one roof. That is number one. Okay. So we always try to design, develop products and services which are contemporary. Okay. So let's start related to the powertrain, because we are going to talk on the powertrain for the off-highway. But for the time being, just keep aside whether we are talking about on-highway or off-highway. Powertrain is a powertrain. Okay. Its job is to deliver a power, torque by energy conversion. And while doing that, it produces certain emissions or some other side effects. So let's consider it is a powertrain. So before entering into the e-mobility, let's talk first about what's happening exactly in the conventional powertrain. Okay? And what we did in conventional powertrain, not as an ARA, globally, and then how we are going to transform into the e-mobility. And while doing this transformation, this e-mobility should not become a sudden disruption. Okay? This transformation should be smooth. So considering this transition, we started working in the area of the e-mobility. As you correctly said, that what ARI roadmap, policies. Yep. So that we started in the year around 2012. 2012, I say. Before 2012, we were engaged in design and development of all kind of engines, maybe for off-highway, on-highway, or genset application, meeting all prevailing emission norms up to Euro 6. But we started thinking in 2012 that what's happening globally. So e-mobility was started picking up because of the mainly two reasons. One, the CO2 emissions, and second one is the fossil fuel depletion. Yeah. Okay. Now considering these two factors, actually Euro 6 was implemented. But even with Euro 6 implementation, these two problems remain unanswered. Because as you know, that India has signed a Paris Agreement where all these who are participating in this Paris Agreement, they have to work on those technologies which will bring down CO2 emissions less than 1.5 to 2 degrees centigrade. Okay? Now in mobility sector, to bring this CO2 emissions down and also to reduce our dependency on the fossil fuel, we started thinking on the hybrid electric vehicle. Now that hybrid electric vehicle we proposed as a roadmap for on-highway as well as the off-highway. You might be knowing that Toyota Prius, which is the iconic vehicle in the world in hybrid, you know when they started working? In 1994. And in 1998, the first TRL 9 or 10, whatever we say, that level of product was ready. And they, I think, introduced maybe in 2004, something like that. It is called as a vision. Okay? So, we are late, no doubt about it. We started this thing in the process of 2010-12. So actually, we should have started working in the hybrid electric vehicle and followed the roadmap of Far East countries like South Korea and Japan. Okay? Because hybrid electric vehicle gives you a fuel economy of 20%, 22%. Toyota Prius gives 30%, 35%, but it comes with cost. If we would have developed a low-cost, strong hybrid technology or a series hybrid technology of 20%, 22%, either for on-highway or for off-highway, that would have been the right step. But I think government of India has followed the roadmap of China. Okay, we decided to go with what is the Chinese roadmap, that is go with direct 100% electrification. I think that is nothing wrong in that. Reason behind is that the cost of the hybrid electric vehicle technology is very expensive. That's why the policymakers decided that then after doing all so much R&D and calibration and all jugglery, why should not then directly go to the EV? So ideally, we should have started with hybrids from Indian perspective, followed by electric vehicle technology. Okay, so see, when you started with hybrid and then when you are going to the EV, it would have given time for transforming the present stakeholders, okay, in the ecosystem and supply chain into the e-mobility. For example, in the present ecosystem, whether it is on highway or off highway, there is a casting industry, there is a forging industry, there is a sheet metal industry, there are fuel injection, after treatment devices. This technology is there for almost last 100 years.
Correct.
Okay, and suddenly if you say that by 2030 we want 100% electrification, then it becomes disruption problem. Yeah. Okay, if we would have gone with the hybrid, okay, we have given, we are extending the life of IC engines. Okay, and also we are giving time for penetration of electric driven components like battery, motors, power electronics. Okay, so the percentage penetration would have started increasing, then it would have fetched volumes,
Correct.
the cost would have gone down, and then switch over to the electric vehicles. You got my point? But now, since we have started directly EV, some sort of disruption is there in the market.
Correct.
There is no clear, I will not say direction, but there is no clarity to the end users. So what's happening, what happens to the charging infrastructure, what is the cost of the battery, durability of the battery. Okay? So, again, same philosophy for off-highway also. Hybrid electric vehicle technology as a first. I will give example. The mining loaders, for example, the best example, is the best candidate for a series hybrid kind of thing. Especially in the Scandinavian countries and some of the European countries, you will find a lot of these mining loaders and backhoe loaders, they are running with a series hybrid kind of thing, which give fuel economy of 25% fuel. Okay. Second application I want to give as a dumper, okay, mining dumpers. E-axle based electric dumpers or strong hybrid electric dumpers. There are a lot of examples in Europe for that. So this comes in the category of hybrid. Followed by electrification, pure electric. So if we thought of pure electric, then I think the already trend has started, especially in tractor segment. Okay, I think even in Indian scenario, 2 or 3 manufacturers, they have already come with the electric tractors. But I think that segment will be restricted to up to 20 to 25 horsepower or 30 horsepower segment because
Right now,
of the cost
yeah.
of the battery.
Correct.
Especially. And the last technology which we foresee as a policymaker as well as technology provider, that hydrogen will definitely dominate the future, but in particular segments. For on-road applications, it will for heavy commercial vehicles or light commercial vehicles where you are accumulating 500 kilometers plus distance. And in case of off-highway, electric tractors are the right candidates for converting into the fuel cell electric tractors. Because in the field, you can generate hydrogen using a bio-waste, okay? And then that hydrogen can be used, okay, to power the motor. And then you can downsize the size of the battery.
Correct. So I think what to summarize what you said, you spoke about, on the one hand, incremental changes versus a quantum jump, right, with electrification. So I think that's what the government had in mind. But of course, like you rightly said, there is no right or wrong there. It's always good to have a long-term vision. Hemant, I'll come back to you now. You've had a jump start, right? You've not had to worry about emission regulations, after treatment systems, and so on. So because since you've started off with electric tractors and let's say even autonomous tractors, I want to talk to you about new business models. Today when we talk about whether it is construction equipment, off-highway machinery, tractors, the new buzz is, subscription-based models, right? Asset-light business models. You don't purchase and own, but you just use it whenever you need it. Could be rental, could be leasing, could be, as dynamic as pay as you use or pay as PAYU, as you call it, right? So from your perspective, how do you see new business models, coming into the picture in the agriculture space or construction machinery space, where you will see that a lot of these small marginal farmers, I think a couple of panelists earlier also spoke about that, who may not have the financial bandwidth to purchase and own, but at the same time can use these services as and when they need it. So your perspective on new business models as we go forward.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. As the market is evolving, right, the business model also needs to evolve. Like earlier, it was just sell and buy, and there was rental as well. So even today, I do believe that rental is going to be a big part of the new market system as well. And CHCs being one, because the government initiatives also, they are trying to push mechanization by subsidizing the rental cost. So that will be one item where it will be more beneficial to the farmer as well. See, the other one that you said is the leasing bit, right? Electric vehicles are a very ideal candidate for leasing. To expand upon that, the upfront cost is very high, as my colleague here said, that the battery costs are high. I mean, there is no way around it. The battery costs are always going to be high because of the rare earth metals that is involved to produce those batteries. Batteries costs are going to be high. So leasing those vehicles make a lot of sense because you're not paying upfront. And the option is that once you make it connected and autonomous and all of that, if there is no payment, you can turn it off. Right? So which means that you can force payments on those leases as well. So that is something which is already kind of being explored. Like Log9 is a company here in India, in Bangalore, where they are working with a technology called LTO, where they don't sell you the battery. So they lease the battery. And that cell, that power pack has such a high life that even after 5 years, they take it back and they can even rent it out for another 5 more years.
Correct.
So leasing is something that is a very viable option with electric. And when it comes to the subscription-based model, right? So again, it's about selling your vehicle upfront and then charging additional stuff for as subscription. Let's say autonomous. If somebody wants autonomous, so as the vehicle has all the hardware that is available, you can just unlock it.
Correct.
Let's say per month subscription charges, and if they don't want it, so it gets locked again.
Correct.
So with all of this, what we as a company, as even Bulwark, right? So what we have, our vision is, once we have enough mass built in the market, right? So we know where the machines are being used, how they are utilized, because we are always connected, we know how it is being used. And once that happens, we can actually start aggregating the whole thing. Like we know, okay, in a particular sector, let's say Punjab has higher tractor than it is actually needed, right? In a particular group, let's say if there are two places 10 kilometers apart, one has 5 tractors, another has 10 tractors, but the requirement would be 8 and let's say 7, right? So we can tell people that, hey, your tractor is not being utilized. Would you like to rent it out because there is more demand on this area?
Correct.
So that is something that we are also looking at, and because again of the mobile and internet, people are aware of platforms like Ola, Uber, and now Porter is something which is very good now, which is where you can rent out trucks. Right? So same way, I believe that tomorrow we will going to be doing a same kind of platform for tractors as well, where you can rent out tractors. So wherein which we know where our tractors are and we know how it is utilized, it is free, it is in a good condition or not, and that's how we see that entire market evolve.
Exactly. I think you touched upon a very, very important point, which is better asset utilization, right? Based on where it is needed. This aggregator platform, like everybody is familiar with Olas and Ubers, right? I'm very interested in the next panel discussion as well. So we will have something new you will hear on another platform. So I'll take that point to Dr. Deshmukh. To continue, on subscription models, right, or new business models. You are, in a position where your products and solutions are not only used in agriculture, construction machinery, but also in stationary applications. And stationary applications, again, play a very, very big role when we talk about energy management, right? And electrification has a big role to play in that as well, because today we are already talking about some of the mainstream OEMs, the likes of Volkswagen Group, Audi, General Motors, who are using their batteries from their first life applications in cars and using them in second life applications for energy management, right? Energy storage and energy management. So how do you see, you playing a role in the stationary side of things? I know this topic is not really about stationary engines, but since we are talking about energy management and source of power, how do you see the stationary energy applications fitting into the puzzle of, off-highway energy management solutions?
Okay. First of all, stationary application is also the part of off-highway.
Right.
So we cannot exclude it. Another thing that in stationary application, if we talk about the first candidate, which is the power generators, that is the first. Second there are stationary application like firefighting pump sets, firefighting applications. There are certain applications which you can tow, but they can be used as a stationary at one place. So there in off-highway, under this stationary category, there are many different applications. At the same time, these different applications requirement are also different.
Yeah.
They are not unique or they are not similar to each other. Okay, now let me give you the one example, particularly the power generation point of view. Recently, last year, I did one of the study, particularly for the power generation, and this study was in comparison to the grid power, to the fuel cell, and to the gas engine point of view. And surprisingly, let me tell you that in the present scenario, and as on today, the IC engine with the PNG, that is the pipe natural gas, is the most promising candidate coming in terms of total cost of ownership.
That's surprising.
Okay, so we need to really think about the ground reality. Yes, we are talking and thinking about the technology. Yes, we need to be ready from that point of view, but at the same time, we need to really see what is the ground reality and was exactly the right things for the market. That is the first point. So now coming to the similar way, what you said that, yes, there are many applications. Now I will tell you that the firefighting application, it is a standby application. And if I tell you the number, in 20 years of life, it can hardly run for the 500 hours. But for in that 500 hours, if the hazards happen, it has to deliver.
Correct.
So that reliability is also very important. Then can I think that something is thrown, can I use here? I cannot think for that one. That reliability and that performance is required. Then what is the right candidate? Can only the diesel and gasoline are the right candidate, but the PNG is with me.
Correct.
Then that is the right candidate for me, which is available 24/7 and it is at doorstep. And okay, you can use for that one also. Coming to that point, the stationary application particularly, yes, there are the aspect also what you are also mentioning, that which is coming out from the automobile industry as a reusable thing and you can directly use. Now take an example, which are the indoor applications in the off-highway, which are the totally indoor application. Either it is a boom lift, either it is a forklift or any other application. Those are the really right candidate where we will not increase the one-time cost also, but we can have the reusable things to pack inside and to make it a more right choice and the right solution for that particular application also and user. Hope I addressed it.
Correct. So I think, like you rightly said, for specific applications, zero compromise on reliability is the most important thing, and depending on that, you choose the right solution, right? So Saurabh, coming to you, one of the most talked about points or aspects in India has, over the past many years, has been retrofit solutions, right? Whether it is CNG, whether it is electric, whether it is hybrid. A lot of small companies across India have experimented with retrofit solutions. And I must say, it has left a bit of a bad taste, right? Because most of them haven't been reliable. Most of them have been brought together by fly-by-night operators who probably offer no after-sales service support whatsoever, right? So people don't trust retrofit solutions. It's got a bit of a bad name. But you have done, something probably nobody would have thought of. You've fitted, or if that's the right word, a two-wheeler with a hydrogen-powered solution. Nobody would have thought about that, right? So tell us your journey, about retrofitting a motorcycle in India with a hydrogen propulsion system. I mean, that's something that I'm very, very interested in knowing how you think that can be translated to larger volumes, considering India is the #1 two-wheeler market globally.
I think you touched upon 2-3 points over there, and I will correlate with the EV curve, which is happening right now. I will put EV and the two-wheel segment, which is right now. Let me say one is the e-rickshaw, which we don't at least boast of, but we'll be the highest volume maker in terms of, if we call that typically a electric vehicle. So of course we do things now, as you said, fly-by-night operators. You have a business case and you run upon it, not thinking on the longevity of it.
Correct.
Of course, we are a land of innovation per se, but one is a sustained, reliable, and a long-term solution, which we don't. Means, of course, we do it at the point of use. That's what typically I call as jugaad is innovation at the point of use, and you're just using it. The user is going to take care of it. I've not done the homework of validation part of it. Same is the case, and I was correlating with the EV curve for the two wheels. When this EV, thing came out, there will be, to be very frank, I was in ICAT and I think in ARI also, there will be more than 1,000 people, and I'll say 1,000 operators who would be EV men. Imagine the OEMs, we know it by numbers. Means, we are counting them on tens and all that. And there are thousands and thousands of vehicles being imported, validated, certified, all the process is done, good boy, sold also, good numbers. Then what happens to imagine EV, is it EV wrong? No, EV is the way, and of course the way of doing is different. Here it was a short-minded, approach to it, wherein you have a product, you sell, you make short money, and then you're not thinking, and you touched upon the point of aftermarket sales and service. And that's how we are talking about the ecosystem solution, digital, maybe whatever. But it needs lot after a product, and the moving product is a very different product from any consumer durable product, wherein you can get it and can service it at home. Here it's a baby on the road, moving off highway or on highway. It is moving, and it's a product which touches lives. So the whole ecosystem has to be thought. Coming to that point, similarly, what we thought is retrofitment as a solution, CNG, all these gas retrofitment, which was governed per se from a government side, and these big oil companies, of course, a few are here in the room as well. So these pipeline and these fuels were available. So the whole infrastructure has to be put in, and then the regulatory, it was done step by step, slice by slice. And that's how it was controlled, regulated, policy-wise, things were taken care. And that's a good side of it. We as a market accept, and that's how we are the market of the world in terms of the future market of the world. In terms, we accept any solution, give me some saving in my pocket.
Exactly.
So if I have some saving in my pocket, you call it retrofitment, you got it through the OEM route. Of course, OEM will do it well. So, you're taking care of this, the aftermarket and sales part of it. But, typically the fly-by-night operators will only sell it and then they would own it. So that's the problem. So here, coming from the industry per se since last 25 years, realizing that, of course, tough nut to crack, and that's how, I'm fighting. I'm getting forces now, my teeth have become stronger now to break the nut. But the whole thing is that, you have to do it in a very slice by slice manner. Aftermarket sales and service, and of course, to be very frank, it is like 5 to 6 years of, working on it. And, typically talking of hydrogen as a fuel, and as I was just sharing also, it was hydrogen is always associated as a kind of a hydrogen bomb, and with all the elite people in the room, nobody would say, Saurabh, what are you doing? Are you kya kar rahe ho? Hydrogen se bomb bana rahe ho kya? This was a typical normal answer, which was in inverted commas, quote unquote, was similar. So, so this fuel was available, it was always there, like electric, and not getting implemented. And obviously being in the automotive sector, being fuel cell technology typically I would share was available early 2000.
Yeah.
Means as I was Delphi, we were reading about it, but that was not in use anywhere. So we had some experimentation done, trial done, and it was all being from an R&D side, you would prepare a product, you will try to validate it, and you have gone through the NPD cycle, the product development cycle, where you would like to validate. So obviously that cost a lot of time, money, effort, and I was mentioning Dr. L.M. Das, people like stalwart in the field of hydrogen, implementing in IC engine per se. I think in late 80s and 90s, he has done projects with United Nations and General Motors, exactly. And BMWs of the world. So this was all tried as POCs, here and there. Good job done as an academic level, but is there a commercial application? No. So that gave me, and he is my mentor, and we are now typically, let me say, the journey was very tough, convincing people and finding. So you had to do everything yourself. Now I have IIT on my side. Now I have my United Nations, low carbon technology people, looking after you, and companies like Indian Oil trying to sign a paper with you and things like that. So, and of course, from a IP side, of course, the time has passed, and the patent and the novelty is granted. So, you have been working slice by slice, and typically right now it's not on, as it is an ecosystem approach. Yeah. I'm typically right now not working on the technology side, because you've tried it, worked upon it, and of course because it's a high ticket item in terms of, as we were talking of capex, somebody has to pay for the money, either it is whatever. So I'm now working in terms of ecosystem building, which is with respect to the user community.
Exactly. Yeah.
The operators which are operating on the, either off highway vehicles, the fleet operator, cost of fuel is at least 50% of the total cost. And here, if you are just telling them whatever technology, either electrification retrofit or hydrogen retrofit, it should function, it should be safe, and it should give the result at the end of the day.
I think changing perceptions and misconceptions on reliability is going to be a big challenge. Yeah? Yes, and that is something you've addressed very well. Congratulations to you on that. So coming to you, Dr. Ramdasi, Saurabh spoke about ecosystem development, right? Very clearly, that is the biggest challenge in India when we talk about electrification, right? So today we already have in India quite a few good electric motor manufacturers, right? Because motor technology has been there for very many years. We now have battery manufacturers as well. Essentially companies who are importing cells and putting together batteries in India. Software, no doubt about India at all, everybody in the world knows about software capability. So we've got all the key important parts when we talk about electric propulsion or electric mobility, right? There are a couple of areas where we still need to develop new capabilities and competency, right? And I think that is something a lot of these MSMEs, which are tier 1, tier 2, tier 3 component manufacturers, who have been manufacturing mechanical components all their lives, are finding it hard to transition into electric component manufacturing, right? So how do you see the ecosystem development in India when we talk about hydrogen or electrification, and how do you see competency development, and what role do you think RI can play in that?
Absolutely, it's a very valid and right question you have asked. I think I've already mentioned that this transformation from conventional powertrain to the e-mobility, it should not be a disruptive.
Correct.
There has to be certain time space has to be allocated. So I think that time space or time frame is of the order of maybe 1 decade, or it may be a 2 decade. Okay. Now within this 1 decade or 2 decade, how this transformation has to be done. So there is a thought process for it. For example, when we are talking about e-mobility, we talk about hybrid electric,
right,
electric and fuel cell electric vehicles. But there is a common thread which runs in between, and that is nothing but an electric drive system. You take any one of these 3 technologies, electric drive is a common element into that. When we say electric drive, it starts from basically a battery,
right,
battery management system, then comes the motor, power electronics, then a software to run that power electronics like field orientation control, direct torque control, and then finally the complete integration of the system.
Yes.
Okay. Now let's start one by one. For example, now if we see the present EV manufacturing segment, we will say right now it's more of an unorganized sector, except few OEMs. There are so many startups, and especially coming from the China and all that. They think like that to make EV is a relatively very simpler job, because just to get a motor or electronics battery, do the integration and deliver the performance.
Correct.
It's actually not like that, because you are getting everything imported. Now let's talk only about the motor. So I will just keep aside the battery, motor and power electronics, which is the heart of all these three technologies. I don't think there are any companies in India who design the motors and manufacture. There are so many companies who only manufacture.
Correct. Yeah.
But to design a motor from concept, or even few years early, to design an IC engine from concept, it was not available in India. But I think we have made sufficient progress on ICE technology as well. But as far as motor, whether it is induction motor, PMSM, BLDC, whether it is switched reluctance motor, I think the journey is long.
Yeah.
Okay, the core technology still it's not available. There are few organizations like government-based, like NFDDC, which is in Hyderabad, which is actually set up under the DRDO. So these are the such kind of, I will not say these are the startups, these are the government-based extended arms who are developing in this core technology. So motor is a hardware. Second one comes as a power electronics and its software. When I say software, I don't mean the software coding. The mathematics which goes into that depending upon the driver's throttle position and the vehicle speed, ultimately constant DC power need to be converted into the variable AC supply. It seems very simple, okay? But making that transformation from constant DC into a variable AC, which the software is doing, okay? The mathematics behind it, that is the technology, okay? So that technology indigenously which has to be made. For example, most of the electric vehicles runs using field orientation controller, which is invented by Tesla, okay? Similarly, for industrial motors, there is a direct torque control strategy, which is invented by ABB from US. You got my point? But at least now the patents are open. At least knowing that technology, understanding, and to make it our own code, okay, that is called as the indigenization.
Right.
Third thing on the battery, there are so many manufacturers here in India, they make modules of battery.
Correct.
But still, you are depending on China,
Yes.
Argentina, or Chile.
Yep.
Okay? So there is a need now to indigenize battery, but not lithium ion, but there is no other technology coming, such as a solid state battery,
Correct.
solid state battery, aluminum air battery.
Sodium ion
The
as well.
IOCL has made collaboration with an Israel company called as Finergy.
Correct.
You got my point? So there are a lot of options. So you can see that in this process, so many business opportunities are evolving for the conventional stakeholders.
Yeah.
Okay, you can make motor. So when we say make in India, it's not only manufacture in India.
Yeah.
It has to be design in India and then manufacture in India.
Right. I think this is also where the industry academia collaboration in India plays a big role. You know, just look at what IIT Delhi is doing or IIT Madras is doing. I think that kind of collaboration also is very important, and we need to foster it just to ensure, like you rightly said, concept and development and design and development is going to be, you know, at the very grassroots level. Yeah.
Just I want to add on this. For example, the example you have given is absolutely right. For example, you might be knowing AVL.
Yeah.
Okay, in Austria. The core research of the AVL goes in Graz University.
Yeah.
You might be knowing
course.
Professor List, who is the founder of that. Okay, he's from the Graz University. Same thing you might be knowing FEV from Aachen.
Yeah.
Professor Pislinger. He's basically from Aachen University.
I studied there, so I should know.
I'm telling
Yeah, I
you.
studied under Dr. Pishinger. Yeah.
Yes. So the core technology goes, or R&D
Absolutely.
research goes over there, and there the application engineers. From the application point of view, the work goes over there. So that kind of approach we have to brought in India.
Yeah, completely agree with you, sir. Let's open up for a few question and answers, Rohit has sent me a message saying, if I don't do this, I'm not going to be invited again. So please raise your hands, introduce yourself and address it to one or more panel members. Can we have the microphone, please?
Hello, I am Ajit from ActiveDinex. So on one end of the spectrum, we have the new emission regulations coming up, which is more focused based on the diesel engine technology, the PM emissions, NOx emissions, and all. On the other hand, we have, as Bulwark's mobility and electrifications startups coming up. So in this transition phase, do we see a new fuel emerging as a fuel of this transition phase, like the CNG or dual fuel engines or even flex fuel engines?
Yeah. So again, very valid question. See, this upgradation of IC engine has practically reached to a saturation level. Okay. For example, Euro 6, and now in case of on-highway, now if you want to go to meet Euro 7 and above, electrification is must. Okay. If you are going to use IC engine, it has to be electrified. Means it's a hybrid technology. It may come in the form of mild hybrid, series, parallel. That is a different part. So that is one approach which OEM has to follow. The second approach is to use CNG or flex fuel. Now, why people have started using CNG? CNG was there, I think in year 2000, Delhi, we implemented all these buses into the CNG. But now there is a suddenly surge in CNG. It is mainly because of the price hike of the diesel and gasoline. You got my point? And third one, why the flex fuel is coming into the picture? It's mainly because to reduce the crude oil import cost. Correct. And that's why the Ministry of Road and Surface Transport, they want to replace some part of the diesel with ethanol, and wherever ethanol is available in abundant, you should run with 100%. But still I think that policy is not clear, because then it has to be BS6, and whatever, we are following the roadmap of Brazil. But is Brazil BS6? No. Okay, then I think there something is now the things are getting delayed because of that.
They are more focusing on blending. Okay. Yeah.
So CNG, ethanol, methanol, 15% will be there, but they will be in the form of pockets.
Correct.
The final roadmap for Euro 7 is through electrification, through hybrids or pure EVs and fuel cell electric vehicles in certain segments like off-highway and heavy commercial vehicle, and hydrogen ICE will find another big place, especially in case of heavy duty application engines, where the engines will always operate moreover in the full load region.
Correct.
Since hydrogen is a SI engine, its part load efficiencies are not that good, and its storage efficiency is not good.
Yep.
So if you combine both, then you require a very huge tank.
Yep.
That is the reason heavy duty commercial vehicles, where mostly engine runs at the full load, hydrogen ICE are going to make a mark into that.
Yeah. I think cryogenic storage is probably the biggest challenge there, but hopefully we'll have a solution. Any other question? We got time for one more question. Yeah, microphone there, please.
Hello. Audible? Yeah. So this is Aditya from Power System Research. So basically we have discussed that EV is the way forward. Duration could be debatable, but EV is the way forward. But I want to understand through which route it will be adopted. So like whether it's a lithium ion, aluminum air. So like sir has mentioned, IOCL has partnered with Israel company with the aluminum air. Similarly, Reliance has bought up sodium ion sodium ion company as well. So which route will be there, and when will we have clarity on that?
Okay, I will take this question. You are right. Okay, by which way in terms of the energy storage, that's there. But if you see that as a electrification point of view, my energy storage, either it is a lithium ion or it is a XYZ, any form, it's only then depends only on the cost, efficiency and performance for particular that unit in that particular complete system. Okay, so today, what if I feel that lithium ion is the best candidate? I will tell you that one thing. Even the lead acid battery, they are still in the playing the important role in the electrification because of the cost. Even though they are almost double in the weight, but still they are playing the important role. So Tomorrow it may be lithium ion or any disruptive comes like a sodium and all those things that will take place as a energy storage point of view. But complete system point of view, you have to be ready from that point of view, and the route, either the storage system will be the X, Y, Z, will always govern based by the availability and the cost. Today also the same situation. You just take an example, the gasoline car or the diesel car, it was not like that. It was the preference because of the price difference. Both are the energy content fuel. Both were giving the performance on all those things. So I think that way will be depends only the energy storage point of view based on how the things will move in coming future. But rest of the system we have to be ready so that when that will come, you can plug and you can move ahead. Hope I answered your question.
Just I want to add on this. Lithium ion, as you correctly mentioned, is the best and preferred choice because of its own obvious advantages. But why we started thinking of some alternate is mainly because to avoid dependency on other countries like on China and on South America. And that's why this solid state, and aluminum air battery is coming into the picture.
Yep. Thank you very much, gentlemen. Just to quickly summarize, I think a few points are very clear, like Saurabh rightly pointed out, long-term sustainability, be it any technology, whether electrification, autonomous, hydrogen, or any other fuel source, along with affordability. I think we didn't talk about affordability today in this panel, but I know it was discussed in one of the previous panels. So a combination of these things will determine which technology choice, the market is going to make, or which fuel choice or energy choice is going to be sustainable. So with that, thank you very much once again, ladies and gentlemen. It's been wonderful. Again, very happy to be back. Hope to see you again very soon. Thank you very much, everyone.